What do you think the future holds for WWE with Triple H in charge?
I think that someday you'll see Vince McMahon's brain in a big glass jar with a bunch of wires coming out, and he'll still be calling the shots. I don't believe he'll ever.
Like in Futurama.
He'll be like Mr. Burns. He will have control, and the Hulk Hogan type wrestlers. He loves wrestling too. He loves it all. He loves the whole circus of it, of everything. And that's really the key to the industry, I think, is by being fresh and always being able to sort of add on where you need to and keep it balanced all the time. Because a lot of people love wrestling for a lot of different reasons. You may love the girl wrestling. If you look at where the girl wrestling is today compared to where it was, say, 25 years ago, it's come so far, and they're so skilled and so much prettier today than what I was subjected to as a kid. But even the midget wrestling, there's so many things, like there's a little bit of all of that all the time, and I think wrestling was real. The last two guys standing in a Royal Rumble would be Mark Henry and Big Show, and all the Daniel Bryans and CM Punks couldn't even get their legs off the ground to throw them out of a Royal Rumble. And I think sometimes they forget what wrestling really is. It was a big man industry, and I think they forget, these writers and these guys that think they know so much about wrestling, including, like, what does Stephanie McMahon know about wrestling? I don't know. I never saw her in the dressing room. I never saw her on the road. I never saw her understood. I don't believe that she fully understands pro wrestling the way Shane does. And there's got to be a constant effort to always remember and give back to the way it was, and always remember how wrestling, there's a history there, and you should always respect that history, and I think Vince does.
You beat cancer, you've recovered from a stroke. How are you health-wise? I mean, you look fantastic. I know you did have that workout earlier.
I'm a beat-up old train, but I'm on the tracks. I mean, I think I've had some, battles in my lifetime. The stroke being, I think, still always would be the most serious one I had. And I came out of that pretty well. I got about somewhere between 80 and 90% recovery back. And the cancer battle I had this last few months has been, as all fights with cancer can be. Some are much more serious than others, but mine was a cancer that was winnable. And I was very early in my sort of, finding out that I had it. So I was on top of it right from the start. And, I think I feel pretty confident saying that I think I've won that fight too.
You talk about your fight and your battles. I remember reading your book, and you described yourself as a survivor in pro wrestling. And it's kind of like a dark concept, because life after wrestling can be tough. It's a tough road for a lot of people. China, most recently we saw that example. I know Sunny was a very big star in your era as well. She seems to be going down kind of a dangerous path as well that's concerning. Have you kept in contact with people like Sunny and other people in your generation?
I stay in touch with a lot of the wrestlers. A lot of times it's hard. I'll give you an example. Undertaker was one of my closest friends in the wrestling business. But, it's just so hard when he's either on the road or when he finally does get off the road and he's home, the last thing he really has the time for is to sit on the phone and talk to an old wrestler friend of his. When you think of all the tragedies from China, and there's so many of them that are gone, but the one that I missed the most, and probably missed the most for a long time, would be Roddy Piper. He was just such a important person in my life, and did so much to open the doors for me and help me, pulled me up the ladder to the top of wrestling. And I'll never forget the sacrifices that he made and the effort he made to help me and to help my family and stuff like that. So, going back to so many of the wrestlers and how many we've lost, it's really tragic. How many are gone today, it's just, but I would say the majority of wrestlers are gone from their own mistakes in life and their own ill-doing, from drugs. And, I when I think about China and remember her, when I used to know her years ago, she was a exemplary person. She was just one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And, I look at people like Lex Luger and Bobby Heenan. Lex has suffered a stroke, a spinal stroke, so he's in a wheelchair, and he's had a tough time for a long time. And you look at Bobby Heenan, who's got throat cancer. They're just so positive and so, they're definitely the toughest guys that ever got in the industry. They're just, when I look at Bobby Heenan, I just go, that is a hero to all the wrestlers. That is a great man that leads by example.
Now, you talked about heroes, you talked about China and Roddy Piper. One thing that always bothered me is that Roddy Piper was never a WWF champion. And I see that WWE just recently announced they're going to go with a brand split. And I always think about if there was a brand split in your era, whether it's the new generation, whether it's the era before that, guys like Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, Roddy Piper could have had a chance to be world champion if there were 2 world titles. Do you think a brand split would have worked in your era?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. At that time, it seems like there was barely enough to get one brand going, let alone 2 brands. But there was a time when they thought 1 pay-per-view a year was enough, and then it's got to be 4 pay-per-views a year. Then it was 1 a month. But as far as champions like Roddy Piper, I always thought he should have been champion. Jake the Snake Roberts is a guy that could have been world champion in any league. Mr. Perfect easily could have been world champion. Probably was a big setback for him to have injured his back when he did. But there's always been a lot of great wrestlers that never got their full credit. Like Dynamite Kid was a wrestler that with the Bulldogs back in the 80s. And you forget all about him, but he was easily one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And when you look at Daniel Bryan and Chris Benoit and some of the guys that came after him, Dynamite Kid would have been a great champion that few wrestlers could have laced his boots up.
And if you look at the product today, a lot of those wrestlers in that vein, the great technical wrestlers, they seem to be the guys on top. Your Seth Rollinses, Finn Balor in NXT, Daniel Bryan for a while before he had to retire. What do you think about WWE's era now, really pushing forward that type of talent?
Well, I think that there's two camps in wrestling right now. There's the wrestling camp, the guys that are like the Daniel Bryans, the CM Punks, the Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn's another guy that's coming up. That they're all about the wrestling and the moves and the techniques and and the fans chanting, "This is awesome! This is awesome!" It's like there's fans out there that know great wrestling when they see it, and that's great wrestling. Then there's the bodies. Like Triple H is basically a bodybuilder fanatic. If you leave him in charge long enough, he'll probably pick Batista, possibly Brock Lesnar, just because of his size and his power and all. And I'll give Brock Lesnar credit. I think he's a great wrestler too. He's a really skilled wrestler for his size. He's second to none. But I do think there's a tendency by Triple H and certain members of the front office that look at the bodies. They look at Batista's body, they look at how Rock looks, and the big money and the big matches go to the guys that have the big bodies. And I don't always feel that that's right. I think they tend to overlook guys like Kevin Owens. Like if you look at WrestleMania this year, Kevin Owens really had just a bit part in the pay-per-view, in contrast to Shane McMahon being in the main event and Stephanie and Hunter and all the things that went on with him and Roman Reigns in the last match. And it just seemed to me that this year the stronger direction was about how the bodies looked and what guys who had the best look went out for the big matches. And they forgot all about the wrestlers that pull the wagon all year long.